Thanks so much to all of you for joining. Hopefully we'll get some more people trickling in here, but I'm just going to kick things off and say, thank you so much again for joining us today. This is a town hall with our fearless leaders, Tom Hassan and Holland Lynch, to give an update on SYA and talk about all the exciting things coming up. As you've all done a million times by now, you know that we're recording, so this will be shared afterwards if you want to watch it again. And let's see, for outline of the program, we'll have Tom first, who's updating on the school year now that it's complete. And then Holland will give an update on the Board of Trustees meeting that happened at the end of April. And then yours truly will do a little photo slideshow of the year with some narration, showing some images and videos from all of the stuff our students were doing. So that's the outline. The other thing I'll say is that we're very excited to be going into SYA's 60th year. So it's the 60th anniversary in 2024, 2025. And our friend David Burrs, who's joining us today, was on the boat, as they say, with the original Schoolboys Abroad. So there'll be lots of stories to tell, lots of images to share, some of them on my credenza back here, because I'm working on some archive stuff. But if you are interested, definitely tune in. There will be a commemorative video coming out probably in the fall, as well as a commemorative publication. So you'll get that in your mailbox. And then we'll have the big celebration happening. Mark your calendars, April 25th to 30th of 2025. So that's a Friday to a Wednesday. We'll start in Barcelona, and then we're all going to make our way to Zaragoza. So put that on your calendar, and if you haven't yet, I'll put up a link to the survey at the end, but tell us what you would like to see during the 60th year. So as we go through the program, if you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A and we'll take a look at those. We have some great questions that came in advance, so Tom and Holland will address those as they go along. And with that, I will introduce Tom Hassan.
Thank you so much, Aaron, and great to see everyone virtually, and hope to see you in person soon. Before I make my remarks, I just want to take a moment to thank Aaron, whom you can see on the screen here, but also behind the scenes, Sam Quinn and Susan McLean. They are really helping us so much in getting the word about SYA out to our alums. And we've been actually traveling all around the country this spring, and this winter. So we've seen many of you, and it's we're planning on that. Plus, as Aaron said, the 60th in Zaragoza and Barcelona. So terrific. And just wanted to mention, I did see a number of the students return to Logan Airport about a week ago. And it's always a great moment because the kids and the parents are hugging, but the kids are actually hugging each other and crying, going, I can't believe the year's over, and what a great time, and we're going to be lifelong friends, and that's for sure. So it's nice to see that budding at Logan Airport. And for that group of students, there are many things that would be very reminiscent of the alums who are on this webinar. They were immersed in language and culture. The host families were such a very special part of their lives, and that you will remember well. The travel that folks did, not only with the group, we do a number of educational travels around in the country, but also students in small groups do some independent travel on their own. And those are memories that they'll take with them. This group, though, and the last ones probably for the last 10 years or so, have been doing some things a little bit different than what you remember in your time at SYA. One thing is, when we get students there, we have a very intentional immersion unit. So it's a chance for the kids to really kind of get planted right away in the city, their host family. So we spend about a week making sure, before we dive into all the classes, that we have a real chance to figure out, how to get around, and how to use the buses, and a little bit about your host family, who you're going to meet. And as you remember, your host families usually have a pretty wide family tree that the kids will get to know over time. So one of the assignments is they have to make the family tree of their host family to get to know people. So we do that, a very intentional immersion unit. We do that in the fall, obviously. And we now have a few students who come in for for one semester in the fall and one semester in the spring. So we do in January a second immersion unit for those semester 2 students who come on in. And actually that's organized helpfully by the full year students who love to welcome their new friends while they're missing their old ones. Another thing is that each week students get out in the field. So rather than sit in the classroom, whether it be a Wednesday or Thursday, depending upon the country, they use the local folks and places as their classroom. So we have assignments that really do tie them to really getting to know what's going on each week. It may be a science related thing. It may be a political. I remember a few years ago in Rennes when they were having the protests, very safely, we got the kids out and to understand why they were protesting and what that was all about. And so again, using the real world experiences for them to use their language skills. And then we have at the end of each fall and then the spring, we had them do a deep dive into a particular topic they have an interest in. And you probably read in the SWA now, there's a young guy in Italy who loved the flag waving groups that are there, the historical groups, and got involved in that and interviewed people and figured it out, and then ended up leading several of them. So that's a great way to, again, rub shoulders. And what I have found over time, our students absolutely love having a chance to interact, particularly with students their own age in the country. And whether that be row and crew or whatever, they take those moments, they really get to learn what it's like to be a teenager there, and maybe even some of the slang, whether good or bad, but they learn a lot. And so that's nice to see. So those are just little reflections. I would say this, that coming out of the pandemic, and this is as speaking as someone who's been in education for decades, I think this group of students do need a little bit more handholding and support. And I know Holland's going to talk about what the board discussed around this issue, but I would say that our scaffolding has gotten even stronger with this group of students because they need more mental health counseling. They've just been through a lot in their lives, and the maturity level has kind of waned a little bit. And I totally get why, because they spent some critical, a good school year of their lives not really socializing other than through a computer screen. So we've got our eye on that, and we're very supportive of the students. And speaking of the pandemic, we all remember that SWA has 1 year where we were not able to have our own students for a full academic year. But since then, we've had really great enrollments across the board, and students who are really thankful for being able to be abroad and appreciative of what happens. And to that bottom line is that it's helped us when we lost all that money in a year to bring us back. And in fact, our endowment has risen quite a bit, and we're now at $30 million in endowments. So that's just terrific for SYA. So a lot of good news to report. I'll just mention a few other things before I turn over to Holland. I every year get to each of the campuses, and it's just fun. The one thing I do miss about not running a boarding school as I did is the day-to-day interaction with kids. I mean, it's just so much fun to watch. So I get to all the campuses and just immerse myself in and talking to the kids. And when I was in France, they have organized this thing for the past few years called a Spirit Committee, and the kids I would describe as just being fun high school kids, and they design events and little things for their friends. And when I was there, they had just done a Emmy movie night where they had to roll the red carpet at those great stairs in Rennes, and the kids went in and watched some French movies and English movies and talked about them. And so it's just, they always think of creative ways to make life happy, which is great to see. In Spain, when I was there, there is a space that we rented during the pandemic, and to see that in use, which is great. And in fact, for the 60th, we're going to purchase that space. So it's really going to enhance what is since I've been there, our largest student population is in Zaragoza. So it's nice to have some freer elbow room there. So we're in the midst of raising money for that, and I'm sure Aaron can talk to you about that at some point too. And then in Italy, I have to tell one funny story. Pat Scanlon, who's been the RD there for 20 years, called me one day and he said, Tom, I'm going to tell you something you've never encountered as a school head. And I said, well, try me on this one, Pat. And he said, well, we have to evacuate not only the school, but the town. I said, well, why is that? He said, because they found a World War II bomb as they were digging. And so sure enough, the bomba day, they had to evacuate everyone. Good news is everything went well. I don't think that the bomb, they took it away and it's gone. And then that's a good thing. Although Pat did tell me that probably about 10 years ago, they found a much smaller one in town too. So that's what you get, when in these wonderful places in Europe, that the sad remnants of what is now 80 years ago. So that was my thing with Pat. And the other thing I remember about being with Pat, we walked up and down the street in Viterbo, and every person on the street stopped Pat, knows him, he's like the mayor, and they had hosted a student at SYA. I mean, it's just an amazing interconnected place. All these are, but Viterbo being a little bit smaller, I just think everyone on the street knows about the American schools, they call it, and just love that connection. And finally, the last piece I just want to talk about briefly is we are NEASC, which is New England Associations of Schools and Colleges, accredits schools. We got accredited 10 years ago, so we're up for our second accreditation, which involves, it's a pretty thoughtful process. It's an intense process. And so we have gone through writing 2 reports, one of what they call the foundation, which is about our finance, admissions, things like that. And the group came in and the visiting team looked at it and it gave us big thumbs up for the kind of work we're doing. And next fall, they'll get to the programs. And so there'll be a group of 4. One group of 4 will go to France, another group of 4 educators will go to Italy, and then another group will go to Spain. So we've got that. And so that's been really, I would say, really good exercise, because what we've also done through the wonders of Zoom is connect people across the board, like teachers in each of the, there are about 15 standards that you have to write about and in essence meet. And so we've gotten a case of in each of those to be able to mix up the groups. And so people from Spain and Italy and France, and then people in the home office. And so that's brought us together in a fun way over an important project. So things are moving along. And the final piece before I introduce Holland is just to say, I'm blessed, and I underscore the word blessed, working with a phenomenal board. And as many of you know, some of you on there have either been board members or are current board members, but it's a wonderful group of people made up of school heads. So there are about 6 school heads, and then about 12, what we call kindly civilian trustees, alums. And it's just a powerful group to come together and really kind of roll up their sleeves and listen to each other and advance SYA. And it just feels it's chugging along in the most phenomenal way. And in that, not to end on a sad note, but when I was on the board, when I was school head at Exeter, there was a civilian trustee named Carlos Alvarez, who has turned out to be the largest benefactor to SYA. Sadly, he passed away suddenly about a month ago. And so those on the call who know him will remember his true love. And it turned out he was not an alum, he was a parent of his daughter went to France in class of 2000, and just loved the whole notion of what SYA does. And on that more positive note, the mission that we adhered to when David got on the boat in 1964, and to what we do when we get him on the planes these days, is just that intense adventure that is life-changing. And so it's an honor for me to be doing what I do and do that in partnership with Holland Lynch. So there's Holland. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tom. And as blessed as you feel to work with the board that we too feel exactly the same way, right back at you, as I like to say. I can tell everybody on this webinar that Tom is one of the best school leaders you could ever find, and we are very, very grateful to have his tremendous leadership for this program, and just it's super fun to work with him. And I will say, just kind of piggybacking on some of your comments about the board, we are a really nice mix of heads of school and civilians, alums, and occasionally those alums are also parents, which is always fun. And we have great geographic diversity, alums from different campuses, different areas of expertise. We're a broad and diverse group by every measure, and we are also one of the most collegial boards, and that was brought again to mind at our recent spring meeting at the end of April. This is a board that really gets along well, even if we don't always have the same experiences and opinions and thoughts. We have such a good working relationship that it really makes for very productive time together. And we have 2 in-person board meetings a year. So it's really important that we maximize these weekend-long board meetings, and we do, and it's great. And I feel grateful every day for all the men and women who are volunteering their time and their expertise for SYA, because it's it's a lot of work and we really appreciate it. It's also a board that is a very caring board, and that really showed also at our spring meeting. A little report on some of the things we talked about. The main focus of our Saturday was looking at student mental health and wellness. That's a very big issue in any school these days, and SYA included. Tom alluded to it when he was talking. And so the board's role in that is, we don't get into the weeds and decide exactly what to do, but it's important for us to understand the general trends out there, educate ourselves about the trends that have come since the pandemic, but even before the pandemic in mental health and wellness, to understand how SYA is responding to those and serving the needs of kids, which have really changed a lot. And to just understand the policies and procedures that SYA uses, so that we can be sure as a board that an environment that encourages good mental health and wellness exists at SYA, which it does, and also that we are prepared for any situations that can arise. So anyway, that was exactly what we spent our Saturday morning talking about, and we heard. Well, we had done some background work, but then we heard from a representative from the Truman Group, who provides mental health services to students on SYA. They're a group that provides therapy and mental health support for expats, American expats, and I believe the spouse of the founder is an SYA alum. So they're very well positioned. So we heard from them again about some of the larger trends, but also what they see in SYA kids and how they support them, what services they offer, both to the kids, but also to the adults in the community, because that's another aspect, of making sure we have a healthy environment there. And we heard from the RDs, who are really on the ground and very much eyes and ears for kids. So that was a great example of some of the work that the board does. Other things that we always are looking at are trends in enrollment. What are we hearing from the schools that the admissions team is visiting, and how does that look for us? How does that look for the future of our enrollment? So as Tom mentioned, we've had great interest since the pandemic, and it's nice that that is continuing. And we'll want to make sure that that's the case. We also try to stay up to speed on philanthropic trends. And I will just say right here to all of you who are on this webinar who've made a gift to SYA this year, thank you from the bottom of my heart and the heart of everybody at SYA. But if you haven't, you have 3 weeks left in the year, and you'll probably hear that from others. But anyway, I'll just put that out there. But it's important also for us to understand these trends in philanthropy. And we also, so the board's work is scaffolded by our, well, or driven, I would say, by our strategic posture, which we adopted, I think 2 years ago now, which outlines the strategic priorities for the years ahead. So we look at that, use that to guide our work. That was what led to looking at mental health and wellness. We look at the impact of some of the changes that have happened at SYA, like the introduction of semesters, and just make sure that we're strategically following the path that we had set out for ourselves. So that's just a little update on what the board has been up to. And, you know, thank you again to all of you for joining. Are we gonna jump right into the fun part?
I think we'll do some questions.
Okay.
Take time for a few questions.
And Aaron, I was just I saw someone had asked the question about social media, and Holland, as you were talking, I was thinking, you know, one of the challenges for this generation of kids is what the problems with social media, you know, and how it affects their mental health and all of that. And one of the conversations in the board meeting we're talking about, because there's a beginning trend at boarding schools, at least, to ban cell phones during class. And so we are talking about what we could do with that good trend, I would say, at SYA. So we're beginning to think about how to do that. And I'm mindful that we really do want kids talking in the target language. So to have them tethered to a cell phone all the time brings them back to English, which is not really where we want them to be. So anyway, the more to come on that thing as we study it. But I do think one of the takeaways for all of us who did this deep dive into mental health and do the readings is the effect that social media has had on kids in this generation. And sadly, that is, a lot of it is not good.
So Tom, while you were talking, Phil Clinton asked the question, what is your policy of use of cell phones?
You know, the classes are so small that rarely do kids, they couldn't be on cell phones during class. And laptops, the kids sometimes use them, but again, it's so small that we would know if they're not paying attention. Now, when they're in the common area, you know, there's where let me check my messages and someone sent me this funny YouTube video and all that stuff. So the question is, do we do anything about that? And that's where we're going to have conversations this summer and see where we land. But I know there are places that, like Middlebury, will take an interesting extreme, which is to say you sign a pledge and you can only speak in the language and all of that. That's on the one level. On the other levels, other end of the spectrum is just let it be. I think we'll try to find a place somewhere closer to speaking the language and focused in on that.
There was another question that came in just before we got started, which was, to what extent, if any, is there a dialogue among students and faculty about the situation in the Middle East?
There were conversations that were going on, I know. In fact, when I was in Viterbo, I had the good fortune of having my wife join. I'd been talking about this place, this magical place, for many, many years. And so she had a slight break in her schedule from Washington, D.C., and actually spoke to the kids about in a very open Q&A about her life as a U.S. Senator and what kinds of issues they're wrestling with, and those kinds of things came up. So, and I know each of the schools has a course on politics, and so they usually do very modern kind of conversations, whether it be immigration, Holocaust, kind of survivors. I know they're so they do a number of things, and that those topics come up a lot.
Thanks. Another question. So we get this one when we're on the road quite a bit, which is, and Holland or Tom can answer this one, is SYA going to expand? And if so, where?
Would you like that question? I'm happy to answer it, Tom. I would say the very short answer is no, not right now. But it's a good question to ask, because we did, as many of you know, we had a campus in China, which we closed in 2020. And I'm seeing more specifically to the expansion question, will SYA return to China again? Well, so when we closed the China program, it coincided with the pandemic, but it was really planned, and it was a planned closure to reevaluate that program. We had been seeing declining enrollment, and it was hard to sustain it. And we just wanted to see if there was a way that it could be rejiggered into something that was better for students, better for SYA. Of course, the pandemic hit, and China is now not a place that we could anticipate going back to anytime soon. We do have a great study that we can refer to when and if the time ever comes to look at about reopening there. But I will say that to start another campus anywhere in the world is so resource expensive. It's just, I mean, it's a huge undertaking. It's not just the expense, but it's building that network. I mean, you all know, Tom talked about the network in Viterbo of host families, but to build that up, to create the context that we need for the local faculty and the host families, to provide the SYA experience and not a diminished version of that, requires an enormous amount of resources. And in this period, I'm speaking with my board hat on right now, strategically and financially, it does not make sense for us to be thinking about expanding. We have no idea. We're still in that post-pandemic world, and we need to stabilize a little more before we, make sure our mask is on securely before we start adding others. And Tom, I know you probably have more to say on that.
Yeah, I would just add that I think there is a political element right now in mainland China of not even being able to get kids in there. And particularly, and living with host families would be, I think, really governmentally, both on US and China stuff right now, hard. That all said, I'm speaking, as I'm out there, I'm speaking to a number of our alums who are incredibly and understandably very passionate. And Taiwan has been mentioned by several people, and I have some ins on that conversation. And so we're, it is shelved, but it's not just put on the shelf. It's alive in our minds. So we will, at some point sooner than later, kind of take it off the shelf and have a conversation about it.
Thanks for that. And then we'll do, let's see, we have time. Let's do one more, and then I'll jump into the slideshow. So let's see. What steps are being taken to ensure that study abroad opportunities are accessible to students from diverse backgrounds?
I'm happy to say this, and again, having been at a school for almost 3 decades that had an incredibly diverse population, we, in terms of percentage-wise, SYA kind of rivals some of the best independent schools out there in terms of our diversity. So that's nice to see. That said, we're always on the lookout to have open doors for kids and in new places. So we have a group, what we'll call the member schools. So that's almost 50 member schools now, where we get in every year and talk to kids. Then there's a group that we call the sending schools that are schools that traditionally kind of send us a kid here and there, and some let us in. And then there are schools that just will never let us in, but there's where the social media and the internet really are friends to us, which is kids find us, and we're delighted to have it. And circling back to Carlos, he and his wife gave special scholarships for public school kids for us. So we're delighted when we find really strong public school kids in addition to independent school kids. So we have a diversity not only racially, but in terms of schools where our kids come from. And I'll make a plea here. I know, Holland, you did a great job for Aaron and Sam on the annual fund. I'll make a plea on finding us kids, because I think tapping a kid and parent kind of on the earlier side to say, you know what, think about this and let it simmer for a little bit is a great thing. And a lot of kids don't know about it. So in your network, please keep spreading the word.
I'd also just would love to add a couple of things from the board perspective. And financial strength is always something that we're very concerned about, obviously, and particularly in terms of being able to keep the tuition from increasing too much in any given year and keeping it at what we feel is a reasonable range. So we pay a lot of attention to that. And then the financial aid piece is something that the board has really been focused on. And some statistics from our last board meeting that were reported out. So this coming year, no, I'm sorry, I think it was this past year, 44% of all SYA students received some sort of financial assistance, which is a decent percentage and very much in keeping with the last 3 years. And 29% of tuition went towards financial assistance, of gross tuition went towards financial assistance. And those are very impressive numbers, and we're very proud of those. So we certainly pay a lot of attention to affordability and to supporting kids. So just put that out there too.
Thanks for that. And David asked, what is the tuition now?
Off the top of my head.
I know it's like
63,000.
Well, as you're looking that up, David, what we're trying to do too is we're in this nice spot right now, which is we're not as expensive as the boarding schools, and we're kind of more tied to kind of the expensive day schools in San Francisco and all that. So it feels a little, I mean, while the price tag is always a big sticker shock, it is not as what it was at some point in time when we're really charging top end boarding school price.
63,600. That is what it is for the 2024 5-year. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. Yes, I know. Yikes. But like Tom said, there's plenty of financial aid available to students, and we're doing a lot to, like, when you go on the website and you find the tuition, you also see right there the financial aid button so that you can get the information right away, and that reduces the sticker shock. So, and like Holland said, almost half of our kids get some sort of financial aid, many of them receiving up to a full grant. So, yeah.
And then we also, for kids, it's not just the assistance with the tuition, but we also, each RD has funds that they can use at their discretion to ensure that all the kids are having the same experience. So if, the independent travel, for example, might be, add some added expense. And so if a kid, if that's what's keeping them from going on a trip, the RDs can assist with that. So it's tuition assistance as well as just whatever assistance is needed to make sure everybody has a good experience.
Yes.
And Aaron, I can't wait for your slideshow, but I'll just tie a few things together, which is the nice reason we have this discretionary fund for the RDs is because of the SYA capital campaign. And that was a thing we raised money for, which is a terrific thing. And also financial aid. We've raised much more financial aid for folks, including what I just mentioned about Carlos and Maluz, Alvarez's special scholarships for public school kids. So good to see. So now
Yes.
the slideshow.
Okay, so one last note. So what Tom and Holland are talking about, this discretionary funds, it's called the World of Opportunities Fund. And then we make grants to our students who need some assistance while they're abroad each year. So it's students who are on financial aid, the resident director, and sometimes some other people within the community will identify a need for the student, whether it's purchasing some equipment for an extracurricular, like there was, I think, a kid in Italy that needed boxing gloves, something like that, all the way up to independent travel. So if they're a group of their friends who are maybe a little more resourced or taking a trip to Paris, for the weekend, and this student wants to go, then they can go to the resident director and ask for some help with that, making that trip possible. So it's actually been really great. And as we go into the 60th year, I mentioned the name because you'll probably hear more about it. So World of Opportunities grants, keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. Now we will jump into the photo slideshow. So we start from the very beginning of the year and we're going to walk all the way through it. It's pretty awesome. Special thanks to Sam Quinn who put this together. She's really the brains and the beauty behind this operation. So special thanks to her. All right, first slide, departures. Up here at the top left, we have France, and then top right is Italy, and bottom left is Spain. So all those excited, anxious faces ready to go abroad back last fall. We have our first fieldwork here. So during the first few days of school, students complete the first fieldwork assignment. This usually consists of being handed a paper map with landmarks throughout their new city to visit and identify without using their phones, allows them to explore the local area and get to know Rennes, Viterbo, and Zaragoza. I actually love the middle one with that looks like a hand-drawn map. That's pretty special. Next is the immersion unit. So this occurs, as Tom mentioned, during the first few weeks of school and is designed to get students using their language skills while exploring their new countries. So highlights include in France, visiting Mont Saint-Michel, in Italy, the Festa di Santa Rosa, and also a visit to the Abbey of Fossa Nova, where students wrote letters to themselves that they'll open at the end of the school year, which they did. And then in Spain, visiting Alcázar for a hike. Host families, this is like the lifeblood of SYA, right? So there's not much more to say other than these are students with their host families, and there's a nice little video here, just going through them real quick. TikTok, the kids are doing that, so cute. Next is extracurriculars. So during the first few weeks of school, they're encouraged to explore their options and sign up for extracurriculars. I don't remember if there's a requirement for how many they do now, but it used to be 2. I think they're encouraged at least to do at least 2. And it's worth noting, because I am the director of advancement, that the SYA fund helps to offset some of the fees associated with extracurriculars. So in the photos, you'll see ceramics, cooking classes, soccer, music, and volleyball. So if someone tells you that SYA does not have sports, we don't have like our own organized sports teams, but come on, look at these kids. They're playing sports. It's great. Vendemmia is the grape harvest that occurs at SYA Italy each year. Students harvest them and separate the raspe from the grape. So they all go out into these fields with all the grapes and they trim them, as you can see there. And then they put them in these machines, and then I think they stomp on them later. So you can actually see them like walking, their feet are all covered in grapes. It's a fun thing. Field work. So this is at SYA Spain, also with grapes. So based on concepts learned in environmental science class. I think if you look in that last photo, that's Tomas that's leaning over with the Hurley hat on there. All students enjoyed harvesting and pressing grapes, designing the labels, and bottling the wine. What other US high school can you make wine as a student? SYA, here we are. Bordeaux. So this was one of the first educational travel trips that they had. So on the left is a pit stop at La Rochelle for lunch. The upper middle is students at Dune du Pilat, the highest dune in Europe. Students researched the dune in class and then they climbed it. The lower middle is students on a guided tour of Bordeaux. And on the right, they are in the Musée du Beaux-Arts. Right, and the educational travel, SYA Spain split into groups for their trips to Galicia or Granada, Sevilla, and the Basque Country. During these trips, they were able to learn about the art, food, and geography of the different regions. And they went on a little bike tour. Bologna. So students in SY Italy, this is where they visited. On the left, visit to a high-tech nursery that clones fruit and grafts various fruit varieties. Middle left, there's students at a skating rink in Ravenna. And then a student identifying characters and themes in the Byzantine mosaics of Ravenna. And then a student at the nursery there in the last picture. Fall snapshots we have. On the left there, the Festival del Pilar, that's in Zaragoza. The SY France Spirit Committee. And then the theater practice there at the bottom. Celebrating birthdays with host families. So Tom spoke about Reagan, who's the student at SY Italy that did the flag waving. So that's him with his host mom for his birthday. Independent travel to Paris. I think that picture is pretty obvious. And then France students at Mont Saint-Michel. And on the bottom right here, we have a little video of students taking a dance lesson. This is the holidays at SYA. So decorating at SYA France there in that first photo, Thanksgiving at SYA Spain, a trip to Saint Malo at SYA France, and then saying goodbye to the fall semester students. Looks like they might be singing them a little song. And then the spring semester arrivals, so that happens in January, and the full year students generally will go to the airport to welcome in their new peers. On the top left there, you'll see the Spirit Committee at SYA France welcoming their new friends. And then, let's see, that's at Charles de Gaulle. Oh, and there's a video here on the right too.
Hello, we're getting ready. We're making signs for semester 2 kids. How are we feeling? Walking to the bus stop to the train station. Like we're on our way. Hey, say hi. We're at the train. Everybody getting settled. Wave hello. Who's so new? Woo! Oh, Coco. Thank you. Oh my gosh, room tour. Oh. 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 Look at this. This is snazzy. Wait. Oh. Oh.
High schoolers, family schoolers.
Look at this food. Prepping for y'all because we love you. Bonjour, we're just hooking up. Can't wait to meet y'all soon. Yes. Welcome to semester 2. Okay, how do you feel, Addie? Exhausted, so excited. Hey, yes. McDonald's run. Oh, we're getting. What are you getting? What was your order? I have no idea what I got. Oh, I got an egg sandwich. A period. Okay, we made it to red.
you go. Next, we have field work. So this is the first field work with full and semester students in the spring. It's called L'Art dans la Vie. So in small groups, students had to find art pieces scattered around the city, some around the corner and some 45 minutes from school. There was preparation work around this, sometimes little known common heritage, and of course, building itineraries to these places. Then we have Monasterio de Piedra. So this was SYA Spain. They took a full class trip there to close the spring semester immersion unit. Beautiful. This is Applied Agroecology in Italy. So this is a class that's unique to SYA Italy, combines science disciplines to examine rich agricultural traditions and processes that make Italian food known the world over. With a focus on sustainability, students will experiment to understand the role of food locally. So a few snapshots. Students study, observe, measure, and document 2 different species of asparagus, and then they go out to hunt for wild asparagus. Students making castagnoli, a typical treat made for Carnival. Students making bread with their own starter, and students learning to sterilize and preserve to protect food from, protect the fresh strawberries from spoilage. There we go. Spring snapshots here. So from the left top, the art exhibition featuring SYA Spain art students who have been working under the guidance of Paco Simon, a renowned Zaragoza painter. The left bottom, SYA Spain students on the annual ski trip. The middle top is SYA students on a hike of the Via Francigena, so that's the Pilgrim's Trail with a local guide. Middle bottom is SYA students walking the Camino de Santiago. And on the right, SYA Spain students played in the All-Stars final of Zaragoza's High School Basketball League. Naples. Students visited, they explored Pompeii, the most visited archaeological site in the world. They sampled foods typical for Naples, so la frittatina, which is breaded and fried pasta, and pizza napolitana. So in class, they learned about the identity of Naples through food and why these foods are available here. They visited the Archaeological Museum of Napoli, and then there's another short video here. Next is Paris. So during the trip, students went up the Arc de Triomphe. A small group presented the history of the place in situ to the rest of the class. And then students visited the Opera Garnier and took a tour entirely in French. They visited Shakespeare and Company, which is a meeting place for Anglophone writers and readers. And then they had the privilege of visiting the residence of the American ambassador. Educational travel. This is SYA Spain. Oh, no. Yes, no, that's right. Their educational travel to visit Barcelona, Galicia, and Andalusia, where they visited tourist landmarks and ventured off the conventional routes to provide them with an educational and enriching experience. So they'll get to see the richness of different cultures within Spain as they visit each of these places. In this middle right photo at the top here, that's Rocio, who's the resident director at SYA Spain. Just wanted to point her out, doing a little dance move there. Here we have Sicily. They prepared in their classes for this visit, and in experiential Italian, students worked on the navigation they will do on their own, as well as Sicilian dialects. In their ancient history through art class, students prepared for on-site visits to archaeological sites, museums, churches, and cloisters. In applied agroecology, the students researched the Sicilian food systems, and in local global perspective, students studied organized crime and the mafia. This is Lyon. So they participated in a guided tour of Lyon and of the Musée Lumière. Students wrote letters in situ to their host families about what they have learned and discovered during the trip in the target language, and they mailed the letters from Lyon. They visited Grenoble and enjoyed the mountains and views. And then there's another little zipline video here.
C'est quand tu veux, Meg. Ouais, comme ça, tu mets bien tes mains dessus, et puis bah, on y go. Au revoir. Au revoir. À bientôt.
actually really jealous of that girl. That looks awesome. Capstones, designed to provide students with an opportunity to showcase their evolving skills. The capstone is a comprehensive, thoughtfully selected project on a topic that captures the curiosity, creativity, and passion of students across our campuses. So we've mentioned Reagan a few times. There he is, participating in the second event with the Spendieratori di Pilastro, so the flag throwers. And then in the middle there, we have SY Italy's Georgia visiting a local coffee roaster to learn about the coffee roasting process. And on the right, SY Spain students spending time preparing their presentations and then presenting them to their classmates. End of the year. So let's start with this video here. So for those who maybe haven't heard or haven't seen the news, that was the theater class, and at SY Spain, the theater teacher Oriol Bastardes, it was his last year this year, so he's retiring, and got to have his last performance. Then let's see, otherwise, so we have students sitting for the AP exams. We have a clothing drive that was put together at SY France, which is encouraging students to pack light and give back, and they ended up collecting 13 boxes of clothes to donate to local organizations. And then there's some final memories with host families, and SY France students visited Dinar. Oh, and then, sorry, there are two other things on that slide. So SY Spain students took an overnight trip to Ligere. The night ended with dinner and mini prom organized by the students, and then we watched the other performance. So that's all good. So now, as my with my director of advancement hat on, I would not be doing my job if I did not ask you to make a year-end gift to SYA. We are coming up in the end of our fiscal year, which is on June 30th. And we have about $300,000 left to raise this month. So we really need some folks to help us out. Participation at all levels is very much appreciated. And especially, I mean, if you're able to make a larger gift, that's great, but every single gift counts. My team and I will be up in the wee hours of June 30th going into July 1st, watching the donations roll in and tallying them up. So it truly does make a difference for you to add your support. And we would be so grateful if you would do that. And then on this last slide here, we have the save the dates for the anniversary celebration in Spain that I mentioned at the beginning. So that's coming up in April of 2025. So April 25th to 26th, we'll be going back to Barcelona where it all started. And then we will be going to Zaragoza to see school in action on Monday, April 28th to Wednesday, April 30th. So please plan to join us. It will be so much fun. Every country, you know, alumni from every country, campus, whatever, you're invited to join us and get a good look at what's happening in Spain. So and then that QR code there is for the survey on SurveyMonkey. That's just, so even if you're not going to go to the event, just to tell us during the 60th year, what are you interested in learning about? What are you interested in seeing from us? And that concludes our photo slideshow. So then are there any other questions that came in while I was doing this slideshow? Looks like we're good. Well, we have hotel suggestions for the Spain reunion celebration, or do we make our own? We're working on it right now. We will likely have some recommended hotel suggestions. We won't necessarily, I mean, everybody will have to make their own arrangements. These are SYA, so you're all very familiar with traveling, I have to imagine. And from hosting these events in the past, we had the 50th celebration in France in 2017, and then we had the 20th anniversary in Italy in 2022. So we're used to having these international events. What we find is people want a range of things, right? So some people want just the regular hotel room with all the amenities, and some people want the Airbnb. Some people want the like local B&B with the actual breakfast that's provided and all that. So we will provide some options and we'll see it. I don't know how Spain works, Barcelona in particular, but we'll see if we can get any discounted hotel rates. I don't know if that's a thing there, but we're researching all of those things as we speak. So stay tuned for more information. And then let's see, we have a question. Can you expound on the new space you mentioned in Zaragoza? Tom, do you want to take that one or do you want me to take that one?
Why don't you take it? Because you were there recently and saw it.
Yeah, so I was there in February and I don't know, who's been to Zaragoza in recent years, but for the last 13, 14 years, we've been in a building and you go on the front door, you go up the stairs, and then our suite that SY owns is off kind of to the right there. So you go in and that's where all our classrooms, the common room, everything is in there. And during the pandemic, there was an adjacent space. So when you go up those stairs, it's basically like directly in front of you. And that space became available for lease. So we leased it, we've been leasing it since the pandemic, and that was to allow for more space for all the regulations that we had to have in place that first year that students were back, especially. So with masking and social distancing, all the different requirements, like we just couldn't have that many students in the current space that we have. So this allowed for some overflow. What it is that you walk in and there's a little hallway and then there's a big open space and it's divided. So there's basically 2 classrooms in there. There are a couple bathrooms and a couple other just adjacent offices. And what we will do is we've purchased the space and, we're going to work on some fundraising to help offset that purchase. But we're also going to renovate it because right now it doesn't make sense as it's set up. We've been using it as it's set up, but now that we own it, we can actually modify it to be what we need it to be. So we'll be doing that hopefully in the next few months leading up to the school year. And it should be hopefully open for the school year. And then as part of the 60th celebration, we will open that up for folks and showcase that too. So that's thanks. Congrats. We're excited about it. It'll definitely allow a little more room because we love the space in Spain. But it is our most enrolled campus and it is, I think, probably our smallest physical space that we have. So nice to add a little more of a footprint there and have it be so adjacent to where we are. It just was a very opportune situation. Any other questions? You guys are asking really good questions. Let's see. Oh, somebody, I don't know if they're on here, but somebody mentioned that it would be nice to have an evening at a Barcelona football game. So we will see what we can line up. Again, no promises, but we will check out what's happening in Barcelona while we're there. It is, for those who have been, it's a very touristy place nowadays. And we'll be going kind of at the beginning of the tourist season there, but there will be a plethora of opportunities and we'll look forward to sharing more about that. So with that, I will give my my final thanks to everybody. My final plea for please make a gift, www.swa.org/give today. And then I'll hand it back to Tom just to close things up.
Yeah, as you can tell by this last hour, a lot of great things happening at SWA. Can't thank you and others of how supportive people are of this adventure. And again, when I go around the room at an event, I ask alums just to describe a moment or something that's happened, and inevitably they'll just say it just changed my life. And what better job to have in this world is to be that life changer for students at a critical time in their lives when they're the world is opened up to them. They can make a difference in the world, and our alums do that. That's the other thing that we see time and time again. So thank you all, and Holland, thanks to you. I know that you want to just add a word or two of thanks from the board.
Well, thank you from the board, and thanks also to Erin and her team for organizing the town hall, and thank you all for being here with us.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.